What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We're here, of course, for the UFC 265 preview. Of course, getting Vegas mixed up in my head again. We've been through those for the past month now, haven't we? But back to the pay-per-view stage in Houston, Texas. Of course, the homeland and the hometown of Derrick Lewis, who's fighting tonight for the Interim Heavyweight Championship. Now, of course, when this did get made, there's a lot of questions, a lot of pushback for the interim title just because of how recently Ngannou had won it. And, we were told and led to believe that it'd be Ngannou versus Derrick Lewis for the heavyweight title tonight. But unfortunately, that isn't the case. Of course, there is politics within sport, and this felt like does feel like a politically inflicted move because of course, the UFC signing that deal with Houston to say that they have, a number of events in their city. Of course, that means Derrick Lewis being the hometown boy, the number one contender at the time, he was already set in stone for this date and this fight tonight, and it was going to happen with him, depending on who the opponent was that was up in arms. Of course, Ngannou, when this interim title got made, of course, was asked for September, and that was not good enough for the UFC. So there's a missing link between the relationship between those two there. Of course, Ciryl Gane had a fantastic 2021 against Rosenstruck, and of course, Alexander Volkov, 2 back-to-back wins now. Obviously, he's 9-0, 6-0 in the UFC, so he's had a fantastic start to his career, a stellar start to his career, you could say. There's a couple of questions of whether he's been moved up too quickly, but every time he's been given an opponent and a task, he always just, brushes the task aside and passes it with flying colours. And I think he's going to do that again tonight. Of course, tonight is his biggest challenge yet. Gold is on the line. It's only his 10th professional bout. Of course, he's walking out into what will be a hostile crowd, I imagine. Of course, with Derrick Lewis, having the fans in Texas tonight. But for Ciryl Gane, I think he's technically, his skill set wise, he's definitely got enough to win tonight. But we know what Derrick Lewis brings to the table. He brings a lot of power. He brings a lot of, he's tied for the most knockouts in the UFC at 12, of course. And, he's probably eyeing that record tonight to make it 13 and be a standalone record holder in the UFC, which would be fantastic for Derrick Lewis. Of course, he's also brushing off that past experience of losing to Daniel Cormier at UFC 230 at MSG. Of course, that was a title bout which he lost via submission. Of course, going into that fight, he had some back issues going into that bout, of course. So he's also riding on, knowing he's been in this position before and doesn't want to lose it for a second time, you could say. While Ciryl Gane's coming into this a lot fresher, he's still got a lot of time ahead of his career. He's only 29 years old. Derrick Lewis is 36, 37 now, so he hasn't got too many, title opportunities left in the tank. But he's just a stalwart. He's always in that top 2, top 3 conversation at the heavyweight division at the moment. A division that needs some fresh air and needs some rejuvenation there. Of course, we've got Jon Jones making his debuts, if and when. Hopefully within the next 12 months we'll see Jon Jones in the cage in a heavyweight bout for a heavyweight title. But you never know with Jon Jones, of course. Obviously, Stipe Miocic, the former champion, is on the sidelines at the moment. He, is up in arms as to why he's not getting the next shot against Ngannou because of the 2 are 1-on-1 at the moment. So rightfully, he is annoyed that he's not getting a trilogy bout. But of course, he got viciously knocked out in that last fight between the pair. So he had to take some time out, of course. The minimum suspensions, etc. The sanctioning bodies gave him. And of course, Ngannou said he wasn't ready. So the interim title does make sense. And take away from the interim title, this matchup is absolutely phenomenal. It is power versus skill, technique versus, the abrasiveness that is Derrick Lewis, the Black Beast. One of the most liked and most enjoyed fighters on the roster, of course. He comes out and says the right things. He's real with himself. There's no gimmicks with Derrick Lewis. He is who he says he is, and fans love that. And you saw recently with him, a guy trying to break into his van. We saw the outbreak of that and the reactions to that Derrick Lewis had. Of course, so and even at a press conference, saying the excuse my French line to the reporter, reporters are getting pretty brave. Obviously, there's a bit of tongue-in-cheek and a couple of jokes here and there between reporters, but they're getting brave asking fighters such and such questions about how it would feel to lose in your hometown against a Frenchman. But Derrick Lewis batted it off perfectly. I don't think he backs off Ciryl Gane tonight, though. Of course, saying that, Derrick Lewis's last performance against Curtis Blades, was a fairly even first round. I thought Derrick Lewis had done enough in that first round. But then he came around the second, of course, Curtis Blades doesn't he would have done. Went for that takedown and got caught by a very vicious uppercut from Derrick Lewis, and that was all she wrote. And Ciryl Gane could be in for a similar sort of night if it doesn't go his way tonight. Of course, Ciryl Gane, maybe the best all-rounder in the heavyweight division. He's got fantastic skill sets. Fantastic kickboxer, great Muay Thai. But he's also got a few submissions under his belt. So he has got that capability to go through a takedown, take the fight to the floor, of course, and, maybe test Derrick Lewis there. Of course, we've seen the highlights of Derrick Lewis just getting up from takedowns as and when he pleases, really, using that raw power that he possesses. But for Ciryl Gane, it's going to be interesting to see what game plan he comes in tonight. Yes, he's succeeded the challenges put in front of him previously, but I think a majority of fans from both Rosenstruck and the Volkov fight was expecting a little bit more, maybe a finish. But of course, he doesn't go in there to risk his undefeated record, his health, or his paycheck at the end of the day. If he comes in there reckless, gets knocked out by Rosenstruck, who hits very hard, and Volkov, who's very skillful, 6'7", he wouldn't be getting this opportunity tonight. And of course, it seems that both Volkov and Ciryl Gane was aware of this opportunity going ahead. So they knew that it would be, probably having a quick turnaround. But, it's Gane's, as we mentioned, it's Gane's 10th professional fight. So there's going to be a few, cracks in that armory and that planning of the game for Ciryl Gane. He's planning to go 5 rounds, etc. He's done it back-to-back now, so there's no questions as to if he can go 5 rounds, which is perfect for tonight. There'll be no questions or doubts of him being able to last the duration of the contest, which, maybe Francis Ngannou, you could throw those claims at because, the Stephen Miocic fight, etc., because he's so violent and so possesses so much power. He's in there for a minute, 2 minutes maximum, and his job's done. So he's never really been tested over a full 25 minutes, where Gane has now back-to-back. He's gone 50 minutes this year and could potentially, go 75 with tonight's fight included. But let's have a look at the tape, of course. We have got 25-7. Once it loads, I do apologise. We've got a couple technical issues. It's always a great time in that. But let's have a look at the tape. Of course, you've got 25-7 against 9-0. The disparity in experience is phenomenal. But, the skill set that Ciryl Gane has shown us in just a short time in this sport has been phenomenal. His rise has been meteoric. I think he's probably the future of this division. Him and Ngannou, obviously Ngannou is a couple of years older. They're both training partners, of course. If you've seen the footage between Ngannou and Gane going around this week, Gane looks flawless. Of course, that depends on the training drill. What fight that was that they're training for. Fernando Lopez, the owner of that gym, and the managers at the time of those two, it could be a Gane fight, and you've been told Ngannou target this, target that, or vice versa. You never know what the situation is with Gane in camps. But Gane seems to be the one that maybe possesses the key for Ngannou. Obviously, Stephen Miocic and Derrick Lewis has wins over Ngannou, but in terms of harnessing that raw power at the moment, no one seems to be able to stop Ngannou. And that's why the Lewis fight was a fun fight in itself, revisiting that one, because it had been, three years since we've been down that venture. Of course, that was an Ngannou that wasn't 100% confident, and I think, and I'd imagine a Derrick Lewis that wasn't 100% healthy with those back issues that he carried into 230. I think he had them throughout the whole year that year. Of course, 6'3" versus 6'4". Derrick Lewis came in the heavier guy with that 264.5 pounds, just half a pound underneath that heavyweight limit, of course, at 265. While Gane came in at 247, a lot lighter. Of course, he's absolutely shredded. He doesn't need to bulk up or cut down anymore. He's in that perfect weight. And again, this is where I do think we need a 240 division, maybe 235 at cruiserweight, just to differentiate the heavyweights from the heavyweights, you could say. because there is a big disparity between these two. Like, this is almost 20 pounds. Where, if I came to you and said, like, let's do Brandon Moreno against Alex Volkanovski at their current weights, you'd laugh at me, wouldn't you? But obviously, it reached 81 to 79 in favour of Gane, and Lewis does have the leg reach advantage by an inch and a half. So yes, a fantastic fight. This could have been a 5-round main event, non-title bout on a fight night card, and it would have been absolutely phenomenal. No one would have batted an eyelid to this fight being made, but because of the politics and the interim championship being brought in, it has, put a bittersweet feeling on this fight. But I think we just need to look at this as a fantastic fight between two heavyweights, two talented heavyweights. Both should be fighting for the title. Maybe that's the point, an argument you could have, because obviously if Lewis loses tonight, he was promised an undisputed title bout against Ngannou, which he wouldn't be getting should he lose tonight. Of course, if Gane wins, you run into the bank, because obviously you make Gane versus Ngannou in Paris, in France, the two former training partners. Now with MMA legal in France, you can put it in Paris, sell out an arena there, and have an absolutely phenomenal event. I think that fight, that fight is one in a generation fight. I think, in my opinion, as is the John Jones and Ngannou fight. We've got to clean up that situation with John Jones. We've got to clean up the situation with Stipe Miocic, albeit it seems like he might be flirting with ONE FC. And of course, as Derrick Lewis wins tonight, we get Derrick Lewis versus Ngannou too, which I don't think anyone would complain at. But personally, no disrespect to Derrick Lewis, I love him, and I think he deserves a title shot. I would, if he gave it the narrative right now, I'd pick the Gane versus Ngannou narrative right now, especially for Ngannou's first title defense. That would be, a little bit more special, you could say. Of course, to look at the ranks, Stipe Miocic is still number 1 contender. Derrick Lewis and Ciryl Gane 2 and 3 respectively. Curtis Blades is fighting Rosenstruck, and obviously Alexander Volkov is probably, he's third in line in the official rankings, you could say. After who, depending on who wins tonight, of course, I put Volkov third. But of course, when John Jones says he's ready, everyone gets pushed, back a spot in the queue, don't they? And it'll be interesting to see, Francis and Ngannou and Stipe, that probably does need to happen. Stipe, when he comes back, probably deserves a title shot because he's the greatest heavyweight of all time. But maybe he likes to win, or the loser, tonight. Maybe, you make Miocic Lewis or Miocic Gane for a quote-unquote number 1 contenders bout. You do Francis Ngannou versus Gane. And, hopefully by the end of the year, we know where Jones is, and we know who the undisputed champion is as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a mess at heavyweight at the moment, but there's some fantastic names and fantastic fights that are going to happen in this next 12 months. Hopefully, Gane versus Jones is a fantastic fight, as well as is Miocic Jones as well. So yes, let us know your predictions down in the comments down below. Of course, are you going with Ciryl Gane or Derrick Lewis tonight? And of course, who do you think, would you rather see against Francis Ngannou as well? Personally, as I mentioned, I'd like Ciryl Gane, just because of that narrative that's been built between the two. Of course, that moves on to our bantamweight belt, and it's Jose Aldo versus Pedro Munhoz. Now again, there's a lot of questions asked about Jose Aldo when he moved down to bantamweight. A lot of people were expecting him to move up to 155, but of course, that Petian performance aside, he's looked pretty damn phenomenal at bantamweight. Of course, we had the Marlon Moraes split decision, which seemingly got overturned by the community and Dana White himself, and that obviously, Jose Aldo got the title shot against Petian back at UFC 251 after Cejudo retired. It seems that was a step too far too quickly for Jose Aldo. Of course, he gave a good performance of himself and gave Petian a good fight. It got finished in the 5th round, if you remember. It was back and forth for 3 rounds, and obviously Jose Aldo, it seems like his gas tank had gone, and that's, I think, one of the questions of, is that extra £10 that you're cutting a wise idea? But he came back and looked pretty good against Marlon Vera, and I'm expecting him to look good again tonight against Pedro Munhoz. Pedro Munhoz, fantastic all-rounder. He's got a great jiu-jitsu game. He's got a fantastic punch, and he's got that knockout against Cody Garbrandt where they were both exchanging in the pockets, and Pedro Munhoz was the first one to knock Garbrandt down. Fantastic fight. I think it was knockout of the year, or one of the knockouts of the year, of course, 2017, 2018, when that fight took place. But Jose Aldo, for me, I think he's just a little bit step too far. He's a legend of the game, a future Hall of Famer. Again, those body shots, those leg kicks that he has, the body kicks he has, I think he's going to be able to keep the distance a lot better. He's a smarter fighter than Cody Garbrandt is, with all due respect to Cody Garbrandt. So I expect him to not lose his head, not lose his cool. But it just depends. We say age catches up on Jose Aldo. He has got a lot of miles on the clock, but he's younger than TJ Dillashaw. There was no questions about TJ Dillashaw's age, 2 weeks ago. So, this game, this sport is a funny one, because we're looking at Jose Aldo's, 34 years of age. That would be many people's primes, because he started this game so young, has such a lengthy run at this game at the top as well. We look at him as a almost a pastime now. But a win tonight certainly puts him back into that tactical contention, in my opinion. To have a look at the rankings, even. That's the tape rankings. Obviously, we've got to see what happens between Sterling and Yan at 267, I believe. On Fight Island, obviously, TJ Dillashaw beat Corey Sandhagen on his return. He's probably going to be number 1 contender. But Jose Aldo's down in fifth. Rob Thorne's in fourth after that win against Cody Garbrandt. So those are the two that you're looking at next in line after TJ Dillashaw, depending on what happens with Petty and Sterling, of course. But you'd expect, whatever happens, we're not going to see a third bout between the two. Unless there's obviously a freak DQ, as there was in the first fight. You never know in the sport. There could be a third fight between Yan and Sterling, but I think it's quite highly doubtful that takes place. TJ Dillashaw's already got a cut out of his eye, so we can need to let that heal. But he's probably going to be looking back at December, maybe January next year. Sandhagen's going to come for that loss. But personally, I think if Jose Aldo wins tonight, you put him up against maybe a Rob Thorne, or you book him against TJ Dillashaw for a number 1 contender. But I think both options work. Rob Thorne deserves a good fight after that Cody Garbrandt performance, whether you give him Sandhagen maybe in a main event, or a 3-round co-main event on a pay-per-view, etc. That fight works pretty nicely. Both lengthy, tall bantamweights, fantastic striking. We saw that from Rob Thorne. And of course, Sandhagen, many people thought he deserved a lot more from that TJ Dillashaw fight, maybe even, won that fight himself, you could say. So yeah, the bantamweight division I say every week, in mixed martial arts is absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely stacked right now. Lightweight gets the eyeballs because, of course, the stars in that division, Charles Oliveira, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, Islam Makhachev, Tony Ferguson. But if you look in this division, of course, you got champions galore in there. You got TJ Dillashaw, Petr Yan, Jose Aldo, former featherweight champion, Cody Garbrandt, former bantamweight champion, Marlon Moraes, former World Series of Fighting champion, Frankie Edgar, former champion, and Dominic Cruz, former champion, all in that top 10. So it's absolutely phenomenal division right now. It's absolutely stacked with talent. Each fight that we get given from the bantamweight division, whether it's a ranked fight, whether it's a unranked fight, whether it's in Bellator with Patchy Mix and James Gallagher, or Archie Lethal versus Sergio Pettis, every single bantamweight bout at the moment seems to deliver at a very high standard. And I'm expecting the same tonight between Jose Aldo and Pedro Munhoz, as I am for the opening fight between Song Yadong and CageChat MMA. I think that's going to be an absolutely cracking fight to open up the main card with. But to look again at the tail of the tape, of course, 28-7 against 19-5, 5-7, 5-6. Both came in on weight. Obviously, Jose Aldo with a huge reach and leg reach advantage, of course, 3.5 inches for the leg reach, of course, and 5.5 for the reach in the arms, of course. So he's going to look to really utilize that in the fight, of course. I'm envisioning maybe similar sort of game plan to the one he did against Jeremy Stephens, where he's using that leg kick, coming in with a box and then going to the body with those vicious, body hooks that he can deliver. And maybe Pedro Munhoz starts to wilt there, because we know he's durable. We know he's got a good chin from that Cody Garbrandt fight. Of course, that was a couple of years ago now. He's coming off that unanimous decision win against Jimmy Rivera, but before that split decision loss to Frankie Edgar, and that loss to, again, before that against Aljamain Sterling. So he's put that 2-fight loss streak behind him, and he's going to look to take out an absolute legend tonight, But yeah, I do think Jose Aldo does have a little bit too much of Pedro Munhoz, in my opinion. But again, I do expect this to go to 3 rounds, and I think Jose Aldo wins by a unanimous decision. He looked good in that Marlon Vera fight. He looked good in the Marlon Moraes fight. That Volkanovski fight. Volkanovski's the champion. That's not a bad loss to have. And neither is the the 2 Max Holloway fights, or the Conor McGregor fight. Obviously, McGregor clipped him, and it's tough to talk on McGregor at the moment with what's going on in his career, but you can't take away the feat of that victory from the notorious one. But since then, Jose Aldo certainly, he's got win over Frank Edgar, Jeremy Stevenson, Nato Moicano, Marlon Vera. So he's certainly not, past his best, or at that time where we're looking for him to retire. And a win tonight will certainly, cement that even further. Throw him to a point where you're looking at him, maybe as a next number one contender. Who knows? Especially with an impressive performance. Of course, the caveat to that is he's defeating a guy out of the top 5 in Pedro Munhoz. With all due respect to him, I think he's 9th or 8th in that rankings. But yeah, Jose Aldo wins with with the name he carries, and being a former champion. A good win tonight, in my opinion, puts him just behind TJ Dillashaw for that next title bout. But yeah, I think if he wins, we put Rob Font Aldo, or Aldo Dillashaw. I think that's a fantastic fight. 2 former champions going at it. 2 huge names, huge legends of the sport. That would be a fantastic fight as well. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And of course, maybe another potential number 1 contenders bout, or at least number 2, maybe number 3, because obviously you've got Gilbert Burns and Leon Edwards. And of course, you've got Colby Covington fighting Kamaru Usman, but we've got, of course, Vicente Luque coming up against Michael CHIESA in the welterweight division. Again, another stacked division in the sport. Kamaru Usman currently doing second laps on the division. He beat Masvidal with that vicious knockout back in April. Of course, before they beat Gilbert Burns, and he's on his path to fighter of the year. Should he beat Colby Covington in a rematch, of course. But we've got Vicente Luque against Michael Chiesa, of course. Vicente Luque on a 3-fight win streak at the moment with Nico Price, Randy Brown, of course. That very impressive win against Tyron Woodley back in March, of course, defeated him by submission, that dart choke. But remember, he got caught, and then he went on the attack and caught Tyron Woodley, and then submitted him, of course, as well. And that was the last performance that we saw Tyron Woodley in the UFC octagon. Of course, his contract ran out, and he's now fighting Jake Paul in a couple of weeks, which I'm hoping goes well for him. He seems to maybe have found a new lease of life in that sport, because I think MMA's not done with him. I don't think MMA's done with him at all. I think he could go to Bellator and fight the likes of Paul Daly again in a rematch MVP. Douglas Lima. I think those would be fantastic fights for him. Good scrap for him, but it's just whether his heart's in the sport. It seems like his life away from the sport, maybe not to speculate, may have been the downfall of his career within the cage. Obviously, he went into music, but it seems like his personal life hasn't been right. Maybe the wrong people around his circle the past couple of years, especially since he's been champion. That happens, doesn't it? You see the meteoric rise, and you see the wrong people float towards the champion. From outside the camp, the original camp that got him there. There's a lot of talk about that currently with Conor McGregor saying he's not got the right people beside him, and maybe a few yes men beside him. And I think maybe that was the cause of the demise, or the start of the demise of Tyron Woodley. And hopefully August 29th, when that fight happens, maybe he can re-find why he's called the chosen one. But Michael Chiesa, of course, coming off a 4-fight win streak. Neil Magny, Rafael dos Anjos, Diogo Sanchez, and Carlos Condit. So he's in fantastic form himself. There's a lot of people bewildered as to how he made 155, because he's a huge 170-pounder. We'll look at the teletape in a minute, but he stands at 6'1". That fight against Neil Magny was very dominant. Of course, it was the main event back in January. That second fight on UFC Fight Island, of course. It was a bit unfortunate. It was sandwiched between Max Holloway-Cater, which was probably fight of the year, maybe still fight of the year. Certainly, top 2, top 3 this year that we've seen. And of course, the other side, we had McGregor-Poirier, so it was sandwiched in between. And it wasn't the greatest of bouts. It was a very dominant performance from Chiesa. Of course, we know what he's about. He's someone who grinds that takedown, looks at the takedown, and looks to smother your opponent on the ground. And we're expecting a lot of the same from him tonight. But I don't know if he can do that against Vicente Luque. Vicente Luque is very good on the ground. He's very I think he's a black belt. If not, he's a brown belt at the very minimum. He's training with killers like Gilbert Burns, Michael Chandler in that gym. Of course, is surrounded is second to none, and it have all the tools available to him at Sanford MMA to really grind out and get prepared for this fight. To look at the teletape, of course. The next one, 18-4 against 20-7. 6'1" versus 5'11", so CHIESA does have quite a bit of the height advantage. Identical reach, but huge leg reach advantage at 5 inches there for Michael Chiesa. But I'm back into Vicente Luque tonight. Maybe I'm wrong for doing that, but I think he has got slightly better striking. He's got more powerful striking, that is, as well. But it depends on what happens with Chiesa. If and when he does get that fight to the ground, you expect him to go for a single leg or double leg, get up against the cage maybe, and almost drag Vicente Luque down. But Vicente Luque's got submissions in his locker, as he showed in his previous fight. But he's also got the ability to stop a fight with his hands, in the striking department also. So I'm really looking forward to this fight, and I think the winner. Obviously, if Vicente Luque has lost to Wonderboy, Michael Chiesa, if he wins, you could put him up against Wonderboy. You could put him up against Gilbert Burns, who's looking for a fight at the moment. Leon Edwards needs a fight. So maybe you get a winner tonight up against Leon Edwards, of course. Obviously, a lot of people want Leon Edwards. Masvidal, to be fair, Masvidal needs a fight in this division also. Kamaru's been Kobe Compton's set. So really, you got Gilbert Burns, Leon Edwards probably battling out next tonight. Maybe those two need to fight. Masvidal, Wonderboy 2 is also an opportunity, both coming with losses at the moment. And obviously, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson put a very good performance against Jorge Masvidal back in 2017. But yeah, whoever wins tonight will certainly put themselves third and fourth in line. Maybe, if you get smart on the microphone with a fantastic win, you call out Nate Diaz, get that money fight. Gilbert Burns was doing it. Leon Edwards done it, of course. It was why he's got a huge name on his win. It almost took Leon Edwards back a step because he didn't finish Nate Diaz and almost got finished himself. So a lot of people came away with that fight, more in favour of Nate Diaz clipping Leon Edwards than Leon Edwards dominating that fight for 4.5 rounds. So yeah, he still needs another win, which is unfortunate because he's on a fantastic win streak recently. Obviously, you got Belal Muhammad in this division also after beating Damian Maia. So he's still in the mix. So yeah, some fantastic fights to be made up at welterweight. So yeah, I do think Vicente Luque gets the job done tonight. I think he could be in with the performance of the night bonus. He does have a good bonus, doesn't he? Especially if he gets a finish. I think he's got all the tools in the locker to finish Michael Chiesa. It's just what happens once that fight gets taken to the ground, in my opinion. Especially over 3 rounds. Because if Michael Chiesa takes him down round 1, keeps him there, that's already a round gone. If he does the same in round 2, the fight's, it's at that point where Vicente Luque will need a finish. So yeah, I think it's a good scrap, good fight for both of them. And, whoever wins comes Tuesday, we'll be, looking at the top 5 of that welterweight rankings and certainly looking up rather than, 7, 8, 9, you could say. You've got Tecia Torres versus Angela Hill. These two have been going back and forth. The press conference between those two were very anticipated and very fiery between the two strawweights. 8 and 9 going up against each other respectively. Of course, strawweight division is fantastic. The division within women's mixed martial arts at the moment, obviously got Rose Namajunas at the top. You've got Zhang Weili, Yoni and JJ. Of course, Tatiana Suarez moved up to 135, but of course she suffered that horrible knee injury and has had to have surgery. So she's going to be out for either more time. She's already been out a year, 2 years now. I think it's 2019, her last fight against Nina Nunes, of course. So obviously wish her well and hope to see her back in the octagon very soon because she's a fantastic fighter, a fantastic prospect. But unfortunately, she's going through a hard time. Tecia Torres, though, versus Angela Hill could be a good scrap. I think Tecia Torres just has enough. She's 12-5 against 39, but you never know. Angela Hill comes in, very strongly. But she seems to always be on that unlucky side of the decision, and maybe we'll see something like that again tonight. Between the two, you've got Song Yadong versus Casey Kenny. I have to back Song Yadong here. I don't think Casey Kenny, with all due respect to the skill set of Casey Kenny, he did go 3 rounds in his last fight against Nate Cruz. He didn't have the greatest years in 2020, did he, in terms of his promotional aspect, you could say, with that going on that podcast. So I think he lost himself a lot of fans that night. So I do think Song Yadong's going to win. You've got Rafael Fiziev versus Bobby Green. That's going to be a fantastic fight. 2 knockout specialists, 2 absolute killers. Fiziev obviously absolutely killing at the moment, 9-1. Bobby Green, puts on good performances, puts on good performances on the mic as well. Post fight, of course, got Draco Rodriguez versus Vince Morales. Ed Herman versus Alonzo Menifeld. I'm going with Menifeld for that one. I think he knocks out Ed Herman pretty convincingly, but he got 25-14 against 10-2. Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Jessica Penne. This could be either one of those, or if not both, retirement bouts. This is opening up the prelims, of course. Of course, two former title challengers, 12-6 against 30-5. Both are definitely on their latter ends of their careers and probably looking for one last win, you could say, before hanging up the gloves. Of course, Karolina Kowalkiewicz is on a 4-fight loss streak at the moment against Zhao Nan, Alexa Grasso, Misha Watson, and Jessica Andrade. Before that, she beat Felice Herrig and Jodie Escobar. And then before that, Claudia Gadelha and the Yoni and JJ lost. So since that meteoric rise up into 205, she's not been in the best of form. And she's 35 years of age. Another loss tonight to Jessica Penne, or even a win tonight, you could definitely see her hanging the gloves up and leaving them in the octagon tonight. As you could with Jessica Penne, 13-5, she got that split decision win against Lupita Godinez. Prior to that, 3 back-to-back losses: Danielle Taylor, Jessica Andrade, and of course Yoni and Jacek back in 2015. We saw Nico Montano get released, of course, for different reasons. Lots of fights being cancelled and obviously missing weight. But you can definitely see both of these being walked out the door on Monday. Maybe not due to their own decisions, especially if they lose tonight. But you definitely could see one retire, I think, and it's a shame that this is so far down the card. It shows the strength of this card. It's a pretty stacked card, and we've lost, of course, Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena. That would have been a fantastic co-main event. But yeah, fantastic card. We've got Manel Cape versus Eddie Osborne. A lot of people were expecting this to be a fantastic fight. Manel Cape's not had the best of luck since making his debut in the UFC, but a fantastically skillful fighter, as is Eddie Osborne. You got Miles Jones versus Anderson dos Santos, Victoria Leonardo versus Melissa Gatto, and of course Johnny Munoz Jr. versus Jamie Simmons rounds out the card. Of course, we had Uriah Hall versus Sean Strickland. The only other cancellation to this card, of course, they thought last week, and Sean Strickland put in a fantastic performance against Uriah Hall. Of course, I didn't do a preview for that. My apologies, but I thought Sean Strickland looked fantastic. It reminded me a little bit in the ballpark of Colby Covington versus Robbie Lawler. Just, one-way traffic, you could say, for 5 rounds. I was surprised he didn't get the finish, but it shows the strength of Uriah Hall. Sean Strickland himself, questioned whether Uriah Hall had broken his orbital bone in the second round, and that shows the toughness from him. But Uriah Hall never really got out of first and second gear. Never really showed like he wanted to be there. Well, Sean Strickland put on a fantastic performance and has now got himself a fight with Luke Rockhold, which will be a fantastic performance. One for the return of Luke Rockhold and for Sean Strickland to fight a former UFC middleweight champion to get that on his resume as well. That would be a fantastic fight. But yes, I'm going to leave it to you guys now to enjoy the fights tonight. Of course, let us know your predictions in the comments down below. Are you going Ciryl Gane or Derrick Lewis? Who comes out of the interim heavyweight title or interim heavyweight champion, and who then goes on to face Francis Ngannou for the undisputed gold? Probably back into this year. You'd probably say November maybe. Especially if Michael Chandler Gaethje's not on that card.
Could hide, like race,
you could definitely
just get away of this. And
Ngannou,
at some point, I'm like, fuck.
You can definitely see Ngannou and the winner of tonight being put on that card, or if not the December card for sure, where we're expecting to see Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier, of course, for the lightweight title. So yes, make sure to hit that subscribe button, guys. Make sure to go follow us on socials at CageChat MMA. Across Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, of course. Let's get this channel over to 100 subscribers. We've got a lot of content coming up recently over the next couple of months. A lot of events to cover as well. And yes, I'll leave it there, guys, and see you guys tomorrow for the recap.